What would you do if your favorite F1 team, after winning a historic championship, began to self-destruct due to technical errors and internal rivalries? What if your star driver smiles after a critical disqualification? Is everything okay at McLaren? Or are they hiding something much bigger from us? It all begins after the checkered flag falls, when everything seemed to be over. When Oscar Piastri had secured a solid fourth position on the track and Norris had not been out of tune, then the FIA technical review arrives. And the verdict was blunt: disqualification for both McLarens. The reason? A tiny detail in sight, but brutal in its consequences: the excessive wear of the plank or skid block, that fiber element that runs longitudinally underneath the car. That plank, far from being a simple piece of carbon, is one of the most critical components in height regulation and protection against setup abuse. It is designed so that its wear indicates if a team is running the car too low, violating the technical regulations. The FIA measures it in 4 points. It starts at 10 mm thick with a tolerance of just 0.2 mm and cannot erode below 9 mm at any of those 4 points after the race. But after the post-race check in Las Vegas, Norris' car showed 2 points below the legal minimum. Piastri's even more serious: 3 of the 4 points were out of tolerance. There is no room for interpretation. The regulation is clear. If there is a single point outside 9 mm, no matter the context, the punishment is automatic. Total disqualification. Now this is where the really interesting part begins. Because McLaren, far from claiming innocence or claiming a conspiracy, got straight to the point in his defense. They accepted the mistake, but they explained what caused it. According to the team, it was a perfect storm of circumstances. First, porpoising. That aerodynamic bounce that seemed to have been left in the past returned with a vengeance in Las Vegas. But not during practices or simulation. It was during the race, and much more severe than anticipated. That caused the bottom of the car to hit the asphalt with greater violence, eroding the plank at an alarming rate. Second, the little useful filming in practices. Red flags, constant interruptions, and changing weather conditions prevented McLaren from obtaining accurate data on the car's ideal height. They couldn't tune the suspension or calculate the ground clearance well with the racing load. Third, accidental structural damage was discovered in both cars, which increased the car's ground motion. These defects, probably invisible to the naked eye during the Grand Prix, amplified the contact of the bottom with the asphalt. None of these factors alone would have been enough to push MCL 39 out of the regulations. But together, and with no room for correction in time, they sealed the team's fate in Las Vegas. And why is this a bomb? Because the impact was not only in the points. It was a psychological, strategic, and reputational blow. In a championship as tight as 2025, every point counts. And losing both cars due to a technical violation is the equivalent of tripping over your own feet when leading a marathon. The FIA was clear. There was no fraud, there was no cheating. But that doesn't change the result. In Formula One, technical errors, even if they are accidental, are paid for in blood. And in this case, McLaren bled deeply. This disqualification not only left the points boxes empty, it left cracks. Cracks that would reveal much more about the internal state of the team in the following days. When talking about crises in Formula One, technical failures, collisions on the track, or strategic errors often come to the fore. But the real fractures arise outside the paddock, in the statements, in the gestures, in the personal relationships that support or weaken an elite team. And that is precisely what happened at McLaren after the Las Vegas debacle. Oscar Piastri, the young Australian talent, did not respond as many expected. He didn't shout, he didn't protest. He didn't even seem indignant. What he offered was an almost disconcerting calm. A brief message without detours. He acknowledged the frustration of leaving without points, but immediately turned to an analytical reading. We are looking for performance in an extremely tight grid, and this time we were wrong. For many, that coldness was admirable. For others, disturbing. Was this sporting maturity? Or emotional distancing? And here comes the key nuance. In the points table, the double disqualification was a brutal blow for McLaren, but not for Piastri in relative terms. Before the race, he was more than 30 points behind teammate Lando Norris. But with both results eliminated, the gap froze. He even got marginally shorter than Max Verstappen, with whom he is fighting for second place in the championship. Ironically, losing a legal fourth place ended up being less damaging to his position than allowing Norris to extend the lead. This is where Mark Webber's role takes on a much larger dimension. Webber, more than a representative, has assumed the role of strategic figure within Piastri's environment. He has been present at more meetings, more press sessions, more key moments. It has become a shield, but also in a critical voice. A figure with influence, experience, and, above all, the will to confront the structure if it considers that its driver is being relegated. Las Vegas wasn't just a technical loss. It was the episode that uncovered a deeper conflict. And this conflict is not measured in tenths per lap, but in trust, prominence, and power within the team. In Formula One, success is as ephemeral as it is relentless. What you built with surgical precision over an entire year can crumble in a single weekend. And that is what now threatens McLaren, the team that just a few months ago celebrated its constructors' title, and that today walks a thin line between the consolidation of a new golden cycle or the premature collapse of its most ambitious project in decades. The disqualification in Las Vegas was a technical error, yes, but not just any one. It was a symptom. An external manifestation of a deeper problem. The structural wear and tear of the system that made McLaren a powerhouse in 2024. Because it wasn't just a car running too low. This was a team that, at a decisive moment in the championship, lost control over its own machine. And in modern Formula One, losing technical control is the first link in a chain that can end up dragging down the emotional stability of the team, the trust between the drivers, and even the support of key partners. McLaren, by admitting guilt without excuses, showed integrity, but also vulnerability. And that vulnerability in a paddock full of sharks never goes unnoticed. On a sporting level, the impact is devastating. The championship is tight. Red Bull has found rhythm again in warm conditions. Mercedes has surprised with consistency. Ferrari, although intermittent, can strike at any time. In that context, giving away points for an avoidable infraction is playing Russian roulette. McLaren still leads, yes, but the difference has narrowed. And what's worse, the margin for error has evaporated. But the most dangerous challenge is not in the stopwatch. It is in human management. Piastri and Norris are no longer two young talents growing together. They are direct competitors. Rivals within the same garage. And that rivalry, if not channeled intelligently, can destabilize even the best technical team in the world. The history of F1 is full of examples. Prost and Senna, Hamilton and Rosberg, Vettel and Webber. They all started as colleagues. They all ended up as storms. At this point, McLaren faces a critical decision. You can choose to ignore the internal tension, minimize friction, continue as if nothing is happening. But that path is dangerous. Or you can take on the conflict, face it head-on, and rebuild on more solid foundations. Transparent communication, clear hierarchies, defined rules of the game. If you achieve the latter, you may not only survive the storm, but emerge stronger. 2 races left. Qatar and Abu Dhabi. Both circuits have been kind to McLaren in the past. The MCL 39 has the technical potential to dominate. But that alone is not enough. It will be strategic management, internal cohesion, and the capacity for emotional adaptation that will determine whether this team crowns its golden era, or if it begins to write, prematurely, its epitaph. And the most ironic thing of all is that the public, the fans, the media, everyone will continue to talk about the technical disqualification. But the real story, the one that will define McLaren's future, is being written in silence. Within private meetings. In the glances exchanged between pilots. In the decisions that director Andrea Stella will make or avoid making in the coming days. McLaren is on the brink. Not about losing the championship, but about losing their soul as a team. And that, in Formula One, is much more difficult to recover than a pole position. What happened in Las Vegas was not simply a sanction. It was a revelation. A brutal reminder that, even at the top of Formula One, no team is free from mistakes. That technical perfection and internal harmony, so difficult to achieve, can crumble in a matter of minutes. McLaren, champion in 2024, symbol of resurgence, icon of efficiency, now faces its most difficult test. Not that of the track, but that of the soul. Leave it in the comments what you think about all this.